Most hated, Cadillac 4100 V8. Let's start with the engine that nearly destroyed one of America's most beloved brands. And the worst part? Cadillac did it to themselves. In 1982, owning a Cadillac was the goal. The Fleetwood, the Eldorado. You park one of those in your driveway and the whole street knows you made it. People spent decades working toward that moment. Then Cadillac introduced the 4100 V8. And within 2 years, the dream turned into a very expensive headache. Here is what they did. They paired an aluminium block with cast iron cylinder heads, two metals that expand at completely different rates under heat. Under normal, everyday driving, the engine would warp itself apart. The shifting metals destroyed the intake gaskets and sent coolant pouring straight into the oil. That mixture turned into a thick grey sludge that wiped out the bottom end bearings almost immediately. You saved for years. The engine lasted 30,000 miles. That is genuinely embarrassing for a luxury brand. It got so bad that dealerships were quietly buying Chevrolet engines and swapping them into customer Cadillacs just to stop people from losing their minds in the showroom. Class actions piled up. The community never forgot. It took Cadillac 15 years to rebuild what one engineering decision destroyed almost overnight. 15 years for one engine. Let that sink in. Most loathed Toyota 2JZ. While Cadillac was busy failing at basic physics, Toyota was quietly doing the opposite on the other side of the world. The 2JZ landed in the 4th generation Supra in 1993, making 320 horsepower. Solid number for the era. But what Toyota actually built inside that block was something nobody fully understood until tuners started pulling them apart. Toyota used a closed-deck cast iron block with walls thicker than they had any reason to be, a forged crankshaft held down by 7 main bearings, oil squirters under the pistons. They essentially engineered a Le Mans racing engine, put 2 small turbos on it, and sold it to the public as a comfortable daily driver. When the tuning world found out what was actually inside, the reaction was somewhere between disbelief and pure joy. The factory turbos were just a restriction. Swap in a bigger single turbo and suddenly 1,000 horsepower on completely stock internals was not a goal. It was Tuesday. Builder after builder confirmed it independently. The block just would not give up. The surrounding components would fail before the engine ever did. 30 years later, the 2JZ is still being pulled from wrecked Supras and dropped into drag builds and drift cars worldwide. Toyota built a Grand Tourer. They accidentally created the most legendary tuner engine in automotive history. Nobody planned for that. It just happened because they refused to build anything badly. Most hated, Chrysler 2.7 V6. Cadillac failure was loud and obvious. The Chrysler 2.7 V6 was something far more sinister. It killed engines quietly, slowly, and in a way that left owners completely blindsided. Found in the Dodge Intrepid and Chrysler Concorde through the late 90s, the 2.7 looked completely unremarkable. Ran fine, decent mileage, nothing to worry about, until around 50 or 60,000 miles, when it would simply stop working. Here is what was happening inside. Chrysler designed the oil passages too narrowly and put the water pump inside the engine block itself. When that pump gasket started leaking, which it always did, hot coolant mixed directly into the oil. Because the passages were already so tight, this compromised oil baked into thick black tar that slowly choked off lubrication to the entire top end. No warning lights, no strange sounds, just silence, and then a seized engine on the side of a highway. And here is the part that genuinely made people furious. These were not people skipping oil changes. These were careful owners with full service records who followed the manual exactly and still ended up with a $4,000 repair bill on a $15,000 car. When they came to Chrysler for help, Chrysler told them it was their fault for improper maintenance. Every receipt, every documented service interval. Still their fault apparently. The courts saw things differently. Settlements came, but the damage was already done. One engine had turned an entire brand into something people researched carefully before buying used, and that reputation stuck for a long time after the legal dust settled. Most loathed, Nissan RB26 DT, where the 2.7 hid something catastrophic. The RB26 DT hid something completely different, just how insanely capable it actually was. Nissan built this engine for one reason: destroying the competition in Group A international racing. Every decision was made around that. 6 individual throttle bodies normally reserved for supercars. Internals engineered for sustained all-out performance. A platform designed to be pushed far beyond anything a road car would ever need. Then they put it in the Skyline GTR and sold it to regular people, which is honestly kind of hilarious when you think about it. Because of the gentleman's agreement between Japanese manufacturers, the factory output was officially listed at 276 horsepower. Everyone, and I mean everyone, knew that number was fiction. Nissan knew, the buyers knew, the government probably knew too, and just decided not to ask questions. Straight from the factory, the engine was well over 320 horsepower, and Nissan had even left a restrictor ring in the exhaust that owners could pop out for an instant boost increase. When tuners got hold of it, the results were immediate. Every modification landed exactly as expected. The platform responded to development like it had been waiting for it. GTRs powered by this engine won the Bathurst 1000 back-to-back and destroyed the local V8 competition so completely that the Australian press just called the car Godzilla and left it at that. Built to win races, ended up defining an entire era of performance car culture. Not a bad outcome. Most hated, Volkswagen 1.8 trite. After all that brilliance, back to failure. Specifically, the kind of failure that is hard to forgive because it was completely avoidable. The Volkswagen 1.8T was fitted across millions of VWs and Audis from the late 90s onward. Turbocharged, reasonably quick, popular for good reason. People enjoyed these cars, nothing suspicious going on, except Volkswagen's official service manual was telling owners they could go 10,000 miles between oil changes using conventional oil. That was wrong, and Volkswagen knew it was wrong. The heat from the turbocharger cooked conventional oil in the feed lines and turned it into hard carbon deposits, a process called coking that blocked the oil pickup tube and slowly starved the engine of lubrication. Owners had zero way of knowing this because they were following the instructions of the company that built the car, the company that presumably understood their own engine better than anyone, thousands of households. Same story every time. Follow the schedule, hit 60 or 70,000 miles, discover the engine has been quietly destroying itself for years, try to get warranty coverage, get asked for perfectly documented receipts, get denied on technicalities. The manufacturer's own manual killed the car. No settlement changes what that actually means, and the owners who went through it remember it clearly regardless of what was eventually settled in court. Mostly Loved, Honda K20, and then there is the engine that simply never let anyone down. The Honda K20 arrived in the early 2000s in the Civic Type R and the Acura RSX Type S, naturally aspirated 2.0 litre 4-cylinder, revved to 8,600 RPM from the factory. For context, the internal piston speeds of a stock K20 matched Formula One cars of the same era, completely stock, no modifications required to achieve that. Honda did this through the iVTEC system. Below 5,000 RPM it was calm, efficient, perfectly happy running errands. Push past that and a locking pin engaged a high lift cam profile and the engine became something else entirely. The tone changed, the intake sharpened, it pulled harder the further into the rev range you went. That transformation, that moment where the engine shifts personality and everything suddenly feels urgent, is something a turbocharged engine with a similar power figure genuinely cannot replicate. It went into the Type R, the Integra, the RSX, and Honda performance cars for nearly 20 years, has been turbocharged, supercharged, and built to levels the factory never suggested were possible. Competed everywhere from local track days to professional international racing. Through all of it, the original architecture simply held because the engineering was right from the beginning. There are K20 powered cars running today with 200,000 miles on completely original blocks, daily driven, still hitting the rev limiter, still running exactly as Honda built them. Every engine on the hated side of this list took something from the people who trusted it. The K20 never did. Not once. Not to a single owner. That is the actual difference between a hated engine and a legendary one. Now, I know for a fact some of you are already typing about the engine I missed or got wrong. Drop it below. I read every comment and the best ones are going straight into the next video. If you want to be part of that conversation, subscribe. Simple as that. See you in the next one.